Hi, my name is Brian Burwell. I'm the Director of Player Development for TrainingForSpeed.com and PracticeSkillsChampions.com. And we're really excited today to have with us Mark Watts. And Mark is the Director of Strength and Conditioning and also the Assistant Football Coach at Denison University. And Mark is also a registered strength and conditioning coach with the National Strength and Conditioning Association. So we're really excited to have Mark on board today. Mark, how are you?
Not too bad. I'm honored to be here and do this for you.
Great. Well, it's great to have you. So the reason I wanted to have you on today, Mark, was I recently was able to read your article, and the article was entitled "The Most Common Areas of Concerns with First-Year College Athletics." And I was really interested in that because I work a lot with young athletes, and a lot of the questions I get from the athletes and their parents is, how do I prepare my young athlete for high school and then even college sports? So you had some really good information in your article. So I just wanted to follow up with a few questions on that. Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay. So as far as like physical limitations, what are the biggest issues or areas of concerns that you encounter for the freshmen entering your school?
Well, a lot of times at the college level, and I think this is pretty similar when you're talking about Division 3, Division 2, and Division 1, is that a lot of times nowadays when you're seeing college freshmen enter this level, is that some of the areas of concern, one of them being mechanics, and I think the mechanics are going to be one of those things that, and it could also include not only just speed mechanics and change of direction mechanics, and just basic athletic ability and just the way those athletes move, but also just when you're talking about technique and those mechanics as far as just basic biomechanical discrepancies with just basic weight training movements. And I think those discrepancies, and again, a lot of them could be due to a lot of them could be due to muscular imbalances, and a lot of them could be due to just not being exposed to the right either coaching or being able to have an opportunity to continue to develop those movement patterns over and over again. So that being said, I just think that mechanics are one of the biggest things. The other one being muscular imbalances, and really with that is just a lot of times, the level of play for youth sports has risen as far as not only participation but just ability overall. But the one thing that sometimes is missing that hasn't risen at the same amount, at the same rate, would be the physical training aspect of it, and I think that you see that expression in a lot of female athletes. So again, those I think would be the two biggest concerns that we see here is mechanics and muscular imbalances.
So tell me a little bit more about the mechanics. What does really mechanics mean to the young athlete?
I think just basic movement prep and just basic things as far as speed mechanics. And I think there's a lot of things that when and again, not to just be too technical, and I'm not really want to quote research, but a lot of times that most of the neurological development, as far as for athletes to be more explosive and develop speed, happens between about 7 or so years old and up until the time that those young athletes hit puberty. And that window, that 7 to 13-year-old window, is really crucial for developing fast twitch muscle fibers and really it's a more apt window for neurological efficiency and also intermuscular coordination. And I think that a lot of times that we get those athletes at our level when they're 17, 18 years old, that window of developing explosive strength, again, you're not going to make a lot of improvements at the from the neurological level, most of it being just intermuscular coordination, and they're not going to become more fast twitch, but they can be more efficient as far as how rate coding and how to basically turn on those fast twitch motor units and be more efficient at engaging those motor units that they already have. So and what happens is, I guess mechanically at our level, is that you try to improve on athletes in a couple weeks what they've been trying to develop, for the last 10, 15 years. So it is a daunting task to do that. But really, to be just blunt, a lot of the athletes that we have just don't know how to run. And mechanics is one way. A lot of times they don't know how to, and obviously if they're having issues, they don't know how to fix them. And I think that the problem with fixing mechanics, at our level, comes from because as a coach, you're trying to fix something that you're fixing an athletic skill that happens in such a high rate at speed. And unless you have some video equipment that you can show the athlete, and then the other part that is missing is once that athlete identifies, for mechanics, if they're not getting enough, obviously triple extension on the back leg, for an example, for that athlete to look at the film and be able to fix it. A lot of times when you have those young athletes, you try to fix their mechanics, now they're thinking about how to run instead of, actually being more efficient at running. And I think that sometimes when you get too technical, when you have an athlete that doesn't have that's not pushing off and not gaining enough, obviously, running being stride length, times stride frequency. Well, if the stride length is I guess the inhibiting factor, when you tell an athlete they need to, push off harder and gain more stride length with every step, a lot of times what they do is they try to overcompensate. They try to take bigger strides. Now their shin angle is at almost, is not where it needs to be, and they end up slowing themselves down because they're trying to overcompensate. So the speed mechanics is really a big thing, and I think a lot of it is, some of it we can fix in a couple weeks, but a lot of it is some bad habits that's going to take some time to overcome. The other one is probably more important is a change of direction mechanics, and that's really, and I think when you look at, when they do studies on ACL injuries, and they've had correlations between landing mechanics and ACL injuries, and I think that, most of your injuries that are going to happen, especially your lower extremity non-contact injuries, are going to be, when an athlete, stops, when they plants, when they try to push off. It never really happens, in the concentric phase, when they're running or jumping. It always happens when they're landing or planting. And a lot of that is because of, again, lack of strength is one thing, but again, a lot of our athletes don't know how to stop. It's like having a car, and again, you like to have a big engine, you like to have a fast car, but if your brakes are pretty faulty, and your suspension is not where it needs to be, that's going to cause you some problems. So I think our athletes need to know how to stop, and the quicker, more efficiently they can stop, and they can get in a position where they can stop their momentum, the quicker they're going to be able to change direction and start sprinting in the opposite direction. So I think that's really a thing. The change of direction mechanics, our athletes, we have some progressions that they go through. And the last thing being exercise technique, and that's really something that, I think the problem is that you have so many weight rooms, especially at that young age, and you don't have, the young athletes that are able to benefit from coaching like yourself, that, that are able to take those athletes through a progression and teach them the proper technique. I think we, go back to, what Mike Bull, says as far as, how well you do an exercise is going to be more important than how much weight you can do on that exercise. And I think that especially when you get to egos and you get to a situation where those athletes are unsupervised, they're going to emphasize on how much weight, and that's where those exercise techniques, can also, obviously be, have some discrepancies in them, if that makes sense.